How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing very well.
That's good, right, yeah. You've had a, how's your day been?
Well, amazingly, my day was very calm. I felt very calm today throughout the whole entire day.
I see, right, that's really good. I'm assuming you're saying it was impacted by our session.
Yeah, I
Right,
think I realized
yeah.
some things about myself last night, and
Uh-huh.
it just helped me to look at things in a different light and to keep calm and be relaxed throughout the day.
The day, right. And not push and drive,
Right.
which is where we were left off with, yeah. So I'm pleased to hear that, and it's really good. And, you know, it's a matter of, obviously, you have to keep up some of that, and, you know, that's not always so easy. But it does give you the sort of way of doing it, I guess, you know.
Right.
So, did you think at all about how you would like to use our session today, or? And, I mean, not that you should have, but just if you do have a focus, or you know.
I didn't really think about what we were going to focus on. I kind of thought more about what we had talked about last night.
Yes.
And
What stood out for you? What's
well, the amount of feelings and emotions that I had last night, I was thinking about where that all came from. And I realized that a lot of that stemmed from the fact that it's hard for me when I'm trying to be a perfectionist and have this appearance of being perfect to let my feelings come out and to discuss things that have happened in the past. So that was part of it.
Right. But it's sort of like when you're so demanding on yourself, you have to be perfect, and being perfect somehow means don't feel what you're feeling.
Right.
And also don't talk about things that are painful, I guess, because it's not perfect.
Right.
You know, I mean, yeah. So it was, you're just saying that was sort of almost an awareness of like, I have so much feeling there because I'm so demanding of myself.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And also, I think it was very good for me to get some things out. I'd never spoke about some of the issues that we talked about last night. They have been things that were in my head that I just never let out.
Had let out into the sort of light of day.
Right.
Yeah, and that's, well, and it's just helpful then once they're out there, you can begin to work with them, look at them, just getting it out, I guess,
Right.
is really the, and then it's left you with this feeling of relief and calm and so on. That's great, yeah.
And another thing that I noticed was I noticed when I was speaking to myself as my mother, I was saying the same things that I was saying when I was speaking to myself.
Yes. So that seems very important, right? So it's like there's this mother in your head, right, which you've internalized. Yeah.
And I think I just kind of picked up where she left off and took it and ran with it.
Yeah.
So she may not feel as much the need to tell me these things because I'm doing it to myself now.
Yeah, so, I mean, at first I'm not sure if you were saying I'm tougher on myself than she is, or I've taken over her job so she doesn't really need to do it anymore because I sort of do it even more than she did, something like that.
I think both of those things are true.
Yeah. But so I wondered what it was like actually with your mother and growing up and...
Well, my family life, my parents are still married. They've been married for, I think, 37 years. And my life was very happy as a child. I was very fortunate until I think that I started having my own ideas.
When you started to not just do what they approved of or wanted, yeah?
Right.
Yeah, and then, and how old was that and what happened?
Well, I think that was probably in 8th grade. And I wanted to start dressing like my friends,
Yes.
and running around with my friends and I wanted to quit. At the time I played the violin, I was in gymnastics and ballet and tap and jazz, and I wanted to quit these things.
So those were the things that your parents had sort of laid on or sort
Right.
of given you, but you wanted to do your own thing.
Right.
Yes, yes. And then what happened? So
Well, I wasn't able to quit doing these things.
I see. So there was a you have to
Right.
from them. Yes.
Right.
Oh. And so you did carry on doing these things,
Yes, I did.
but
And
inside,
I hated it.
uh-huh.
And I just remember having a lot of arguments with my mom at that point. And she would call me a drama queen, and
I see, yes.
I would try to tell her how I felt, and she would say, well, no, that's not how you feel. This is how you feel.
I see.
So
she was actually quite defining of your inner world, but that's very invalidating, right? So there was this real struggle going on then, but also the loss of the kind of innocence of the earlier happy childhood, right? And that touches the loss, I guess, or I don't know, as you
right.
begin to feel about it, it's like, what are you feeling? What's the most painful about it?
I think the most painful thing about it is that I wasn't allowed to be myself or act like myself, and I felt like I had to be a certain person in order for my mom to love me.
Yeah, so this is part of the mother in your head, but it's the pain I hear. So, I'm going to suggest again we do something, right, in a dialogue, because there's so much there, right, and I understand you're feeling it, and so I'm going to suggest we bring your mother in this time and really begin to try to deal with some of this. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Right, okay. So if you can just imagine your mother there, right? And what happens when you bring her in? Can you see her or sense her there?
Yeah.
And what happens inside? What do you feel?
I feel really sad. It's.
Can you tell her, right, about your sadness? I'm sad.
I feel really sad because I want to have a really good relationship with you. And I want to have a friendship with you, and I want to call you on the phone and tell you about my day and the things that are going on in my life without you judging me or telling me what to do.
So I'm sad about not being able to have this, but also I don't like what I get, the judgment, right?
Right.
Right? Can you tell her what you resent?
I resent the fact that you think that you're always right and that you always have the best answer for everything in life, and you don't allow me to have my own ideas and my own feelings, and it makes me really angry.
Do you feel angry?
I just feel more sad than angry.
Yeah.
Because me feeling so angry makes me sad that I feel like that.
But it's this complex mixture of anger and sad, right?
Right.
And maybe we can work to have each of them, because each one is really important, right? But I see the sad, right? So tell her what you miss, because that's what's so sad, right? I
miss you. I miss you hugging me and telling me that you love me. I miss the fact that you don't tell me that you're proud of me. And I miss spending time with you and going shopping and having fun together like we used to.
So I miss having this close, validating relationship.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, breathe again. And so what do you need from her?
I've tried to tell her what I need from her.
Yeah.
And I think that she's just at the point in her life where she's not able to change. And I know that I have to change my own point of view on this. And I can't seem to figure out how to do that.
Right. Yeah. So let's try and, I can't quite let go of trying to get you to change or trying to get from you what I need. Try telling her this, actually, because I think you're saying, I think you're saying, I know I can't get it from you. I know you're not going to change.
I know that I'm not going to get that from you, and that you're not going to change, you're not willing to change, and that hurts my feelings too. Because I feel if you really love me, that you would work harder on this relationship. And you won't do that.
Right. Yeah. Let me suggest you come over here and be your mother. I'd like you to be your mother now, who won't change, and who be this unresponsive mother. What do you say to her?
You know, you were a very special child to me, and I loved you, and I was so afraid when you were young because you were sick, and I tried to take care of you and protect you from everything bad that was going to happen to you in life. And you just wouldn't listen to me, and you ended up having a really hard time in life because you didn't listen to me. And I see you making mistakes, and I don't agree with the road that you're taking.
It's almost like she's saying, I feel rejected by you. I mean, I'm just hearing that in the tone. It's like you don't listen to me, I want you. But what was this about? When you were sick, I took care of you?
When my mom had a child that died probably a year and a half before I was born.
I see.
And then when I was born, I had asthma really bad.
I see. Right.
So
yeah. So she was very anxious about you, and right. So tell her this, right? Just tell her I was anxious.
I was very anxious, and I was scared. I was scared that I was going to lose another child. And I just wanted to take care of you, and you were my beautiful daughter, and I had so many hopes and dreams for you. And you haven't done any of those things that I wanted you to do.
So I'm disappointed in.
I'm very disappointed in you.
And what else?
I don't think that I can forgive you or accept you because
Yeah, tell her this. I don't accept you and I don't forgive you.
I don't accept you and I don't forgive you.
I don't forgive you for what?
I don't forgive you for not doing the things that I wanted you to do.
Tell her what you wanted her to do.
I wanted you to be the most popular girl in school. I wanted you to be the homecoming queen. I wanted you to grow up and play the violin for the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. I wanted you to marry somebody that had a lot of money and have the best that life had to offer.
I wanted you to achieve everything, all my dreams.
I wanted you to live out all of my dreams.
Change. What happens inside of you when you get that? What does it make you feel?
It makes me feel like it's not fair for her to put her expectations on me.
Yes.
And I tried for a long time to live up to her expectations, but it didn't ever seem to work anyway. So I just went the opposite way and
Tell her, right?
I tried to make you happy, and I tried to live up to all of your expectations. And I tried to make you proud of me for a long, long time, and it just never seemed like it was good enough for you. So I just decided to go the opposite way because it didn't matter one way or another. You were never satisfied with the person who I was.
I couldn't please you.
I could never please you.
Well,
I could never please you completely. You would tell me that this was good, but then you would turn around and tell me that I needed to do something else. And all I wanted you to do was to be happy and to be proud of me. And you wouldn't give it to me.
it's kind of left this big hole inside almost, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell her about what's happened inside of you?
You've left a hole in my heart. And it hurts.
Mm-hmm. And I keep trying to get you, or wanting you to tell her what you want, or what you...
I keep trying to get you to be proud of me. And to just love me for who I am.
Mm-hmm. Say this again. I want you to love me for who I am.
I want you to love me for who I am.
Mm-hmm. Again.
I want you to love me for who I am. I told her this.
Change. So what does she say when you tell her this?
I love you.
But the attitude is, what's the message sent?
I don't really love you.
Uh-huh.
I just am going to tell you that I love you because that's what you want to hear and that's what I'm supposed to say.
But I disapprove of you. Be that disapproving mother, right? You're not the daughter.
You're not the daughter that I wanted you to be. You're not the daughter that I thought I was going to get. You've done a lot of things in your life. You've turned your back on your family. And I don't see any reason why you want me to love you now because it wasn't really important to you 10, 15 years ago. So what's the big deal now?
So it's kind of, but it is like I feel rejected and I'm rejecting you. That's the,
Right.
yeah. So basically it's I reject you, I disapprove of you. Is that,
Yeah, that's how I feel.
change. So what do you feel in the face of this disapproval?
I feel that it's a shame that we're never going to be able to be close as a mother and daughter. And I feel very disappointed because you make it so important to spend time together and to go to church together and to go on family vacations together. And I don't know why, if you really feel like that about me, you make it such a point to have me involved in all of these things. I think actually that I don't know that I'm right. I feel like you try to keep me around just so you can remind me how I've made mistakes in my life and treat me bad.
So it feels like you just keep me around to kick me.
Yeah.
What does that make you feel?
I don't want to be kicked.
You tell her, right?
I don't want to be kicked. I don't want to be around for you to treat me like this.
What are you angry at her for?
I'm angry at you because I tried to tell you over and over again how I felt about things, and you totally discounted my feelings and told me that that's not what I was feeling and tried to tell me exactly what I was feeling when you're not me and you don't know how I'm feeling. And it's made me question how I feel about every single thing in life.
And you start feeling angry and then you go into the sadness again, or into the neediness, right? What happens to the anger? How does that...
I don't want to be angry at my mom. I don't think that it's right.
Can you come over here? Stop yourself from being angry. Or how do you kind of take it away? It began to rise, right? A stronger kind of you. And then, what do you say to her? This is now a you as you, right? As a part of you. Like, don't be angry at your mother. She's your mother.
You can't be mad at your mother. She doesn't know any better because she had a hard time growing up herself. And she did the best with what she knew how to do. And she had a lot of hopes for you. And that doesn't mean that she doesn't love you. That means that she loved you a lot.
So therefore you can't be angry.
No. No, you can't be angry at her because she really did love you.
So somehow, if she loved you, you aren't allowed to be angry, even though you are angry, I think.
Yeah.
Right? And the tears come up now again. What are those tears about?
Because I can't be angry at her. I can't be angry at her, and if...
Stop her. You can't be angry at her.
Okay. You can't be angry at her.
Because?
Because when you get angry at her, all she does is make you feel guilty, so the anger doesn't get you anywhere.
You know, it's also a little different actually being angry with her than just being angry at her within yourself. I understand being angry at her and the world as a whole, complicated business. But it sounds like it's also difficult to feel entitled to being angry at her, right? And that's somehow a guilt, right? Right? You aren't allowed because she did love you, she did try her best. And so, how do you squash the anger? I mean, when you were an adolescent, you did eventually rebel, yeah?
Yeah, I sure did.
And were you angry then?
I think I was angry then. I think I was trying to get her attention or
Yeah, I see.
get her goat, so to speak.
So let's come over here. So what happens to your anger, right? Here's this that says you can't be angry. What's that like for you? I mean, you do feel some anger, right? I mean, you said earlier
Yeah,
that
I
there's
do.
both sad and anger, but the anger kind of dissolves,
Because it doesn't do any good to be angry.
But it may do some good for you to be able to feel entitled to be angry. Because somehow it's almost like you're not allowed to be angry. Let's put your mother here and tell her what you're angry about. She's not here, so it's not a matter of, how she'll react, But I don't know that you feel entitled to be angry.
I feel angry at you because you tried to live your life through me, and that wasn't fair to me. Because my desires and needs are completely different than yours, and you wouldn't listen to me when I tried to tell you this. You just kept pushing me and pushing me, and then you tried to push me into things,
It's like I felt twisted out of shape, or
and I didn't feel like I belonged there, and you just kept forcing me to be in uncomfortable situations, and I didn't know what to do. And I carry a lot of that stuff around with me now, and I don't know what to do with it. And I'm angry that when I try to talk to you about these things, you get defensive and tell me these things never happened or it wasn't like that.
Yeah, so tell us some more about this. You didn't, it sounds like an awful feeling of being forced to do things and then not really fitting, right?
I didn't fit into the different things that you wanted me to do.
And I kept trying to get your approval, almost, or I kept trying to fit in, but really I hated it.
Yeah.
Tell her what you hated or what was terrible.
I hated playing the violin. I hated the fact that you went around and told everybody that I should be the first violin player when I really don't feel that I was that good. And they had tryouts and I didn't get the first chair. And then you were mad at me and disappointed in me. And maybe I needed you to hug me and tell me that it was still okay, instead of yelling at me.
What? Say this again. I needed
you to hug me and tell me that I was still okay, instead of yelling at me.
That so hurts, right? This is the hurt. So tell us some more about it. It hurts so.
It hurt really bad. It's a theme. It happened over and over and over again in my life. And everything that I tried, if I failed at it, it was like I couldn't even feel upset about it at the time because you were so busy being angry and disappointed in me.
That's where really the pain is, right?
Yeah.
Can you speak from that pain? It must be...
It just hurts. And when I wanted to cry and I wanted to have somebody hug me, I knew that I wasn't going to get it, so I just had to act like I didn't care.
Yeah, yes, I had to put on a tough, or I don't care attitude, right? But the ache inside still ached.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ached for you to just hold me and say I'm okay.
I ached for you to hold me and just tell me that it was okay and that I was still a lovable person, and give me some kind of reassuring talk, make me feel better about it. And every single time, you just made me feel terrible, like I was a disappointment. And the anger is because I didn't even want it. I didn't even want it in the first place.
I didn't even want the...
I didn't even want whatever I was doing. I didn't want these things. I was doing it for you.
I was doing it for you. So I sort of like I doubly hurt, or I doubly almost, it was like you were prostituting yourself. I was doing it to try to get your love. And then I felt so bad when I didn't do it, but I wasn't even doing it for me. Right. Again, so I'm angry at you for...
I'm angry at you.
For expecting me to be what I was not.
Yeah, I'm angry for you for expecting me to be what I was not. And I am angry with you for forcing me into these situations. And then just to tell me that you're disappointed in me.
Yeah. So I'm angry for you for forcing me and then for being disappointed.
I'm angry at you for forcing me to do things that I didn't want to do, and then to be disappointed in me when I didn't do as well as you expected me to do.
Right. Now, do you feel some anger in your body?
Yeah.
Where do you feel it? What do you actually feel? What's it like? I mean, is it in your here or?
No, I don't know where. I feel like I deserve to be angry.
Yeah. And it's very important to let that anger, that's an important anger. It's the opposite of needing desperately the approval, right? But I think you don't have a lot of space almost in your body for the anger to be a steel rod for you, to make you strong. So we need to help, right? So some more, I'm angry at you. I deserve, you said to me, I deserve being.
I do deserve to be angry, but
yeah.
I guess I just don't like anger. I would rather not be angry and to get to the forgiveness point.
I understand. But to get to forgiveness, you really have to first acknowledge the anger and really make it real. Not actually with her in the world, but in yourself. You know, you said something earlier was, I'm different to you, right? Anger supports difference, right? Tell her about your difference, or who you want to be, and that you're not who she expects you to be, and so on.
I'm different than you because I don't feel like I have to tell everybody how smart I am all the time, and I don't have to correct everybody and point out their shortcomings. I'm different than you because I can make jokes and talk to people that I don't know, that I accept other people's point of view, that I'm
So I'm just not so intent on proving myself to, or being an image, or being
Yeah, I'm not an image. I'm a real person. And with my faults and my strengths and everything about me, I am true to myself, and I don't pretend to be somebody that I'm not. Now, because I don't have to anymore, because I'm an adult.
Right, but with you, when I was a child...
But when I was a child, I felt that I had to act a certain way and be a certain way in order for you to love me. And I watched you put on shows basically for your friends, and you weren't true to yourself.
And you just used me. I was like a... What was it like for you? I was like a...
I was like a Barbie doll or a puppet, or... Yes. I was actually, I think that I was just something for you to show off to your friends, because you didn't tell me about the good things that you thought that I was doing, and you never let me know when you were proud of me. But I would hear you talk to your friends, or I would hear you talk on the phone, and you would tell them all about how wonderful I was doing and how great things were.
But you never really...
You never told me.
So I'm angry at?
I'm angry. Just...
What?
I just keep seeing things from her point of view. It's hard for me to be angry when I think about why she acts the way that she does.
So try telling her I lose myself by kind of becoming you, almost. I lose myself by understanding you.
I lose myself by understanding you. I don't want to lose myself. I just found myself recently.
And you know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think this is what you're saying. I sort of just blend into what I understand her point of view, and then I lose my own point of view. I lose my own sense of my right to be different, right?
Even though I'm angry at you, I still put you ahead of myself. And I don't want to do that, because you don't put me ahead of yourself. Ever. And I'm mad because that's not fair, and I don't want to do it anymore.
Again, I don't want to do it. I don't want to give myself up.
I don't want to give myself up. And I'm not going to do it anymore. And if you're not proud of me, and I'm not doing the things that you would choose for me to do, it's just tough, because I have to live my life just like you have to live your life.
And what do you feel when you say this?
I feel a sense of relief.
Because this is important, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard for you to hold this point of view, right, of being separate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell her what's hard about letting go of the need for her approval, her recognition.
Well, it's hard for me to let go of my need for your approval, because in the back of my mind, I still keep hoping that I'm going to get it one day. And I think I'm starting to realize that I'm not going to get it, no matter what I do. And I also wish that all of the things that you tell your friends were true about the way you feel about me. I just would think that it would be easy for you to sit there and tell me these things yourself.
But So the struggle is letting go. I mean, it would be great if she gives you things, but
Yeah.
it's hard to let go of the need for them, right? Right.
Yeah. It is hard to let go.
There's still that hope, and that hope that one day I'll get it from you, right? Do you think, and this is I'm going to paint a dramatic picture, do you think you'll go to your mother's grave and still want her approval?
I've thought about that before. I thought that I would.
That you would?
I would probably go, yeah. I thought that she would go to her grave and I would still feel like I needed her approval, and I would feel like just devastated that I worked my whole life and never got it. And I don't want to feel like that.
Right.
And I really think that she's giving me all that she as a person is capable of giving me. And I just need to learn how to deal with the fact that I'm not going to get her approval. And I've known this. Part of me has known that.
Yeah. But this is the struggle, right? Right. So let's try for now. Tell her what you're able to let go of and what you're not able to let go. Or how much, or how it is for you right now. What do you feel?
I'm able to let go of you trying to always make yourself look like the smartest person in the situation. I'm willing to let go of the fact that I spent a lot of years of my life doing these things that I didn't necessarily want to do to make you happy. I can let go of...
Can you let go of wanting her approval? That's it.
I'm going to work on letting go.
Right, and it's important. So tell her where you are. I'm going to work on...
I'm going to work on letting go of my need for your approval because it's not doing anything healthy for me in my life. And I'm going to continue being the person that I am. And even if you try to tell me what to do, I'm going to work on letting that go in one ear and out the other, because you're not going to stop doing these things.
Yeah. If we were to try to come up with one small thing that you could actually do in the world that would be letting go of a little bit of her approval, what could you do? What would that look like? I mean, I don't know enough to make a suggestion, but can you think of, like, maybe that's something you can think about if you can't...
I don't know.
Do you speak to her?
Yeah, I speak to her. She watches my son for me after school and before school.
Yes. So if you were to take one just small thing of not looking for her approval, what could you do?
I could not get up and go to church on Sunday.
Because I do that for your...
I do that for her approval, but at the same time I do that for myself. But there are a few times when I don't necessarily feel like getting up and going to church.
Right. So when I don't feel like it...
When I'm tired, when I've worked until midnight the night before church and I don't feel like getting out of bed, I don't know if I could really do that.
Okay. So this is important thing to start asking yourself, what can you do, right? And
Right.
it brings up the difficulty. Because, I don't know if I could do that, because I would fear...
I would fear that she would call me and question me about it, then she would talk to my dad about it, then she would call my sister and talk to her about it, and then they would call my brother and talk to him about it, and that's just the way that things work when I do things that she doesn't necessarily approve of.
And what do you feel about that?
Well, it used to bother me a lot.
But right now?
I don't care
Uh-huh.
much.
It would make me angry, right? Being so controlled.
Yeah.
Does it make you?
It made me angry in the past,
Uh-huh.
but I don't even feel angry anymore. I don't care.
It's kind of like,
She used to do the same thing to me when she'd get upset with my sister.
Yeah.
So I just told her that I don't want to be involved in that anymore.
right. We do need to end off, and we're sort of at, but you know, this is the difficult point, right? The stuck place where the struggle is, yeah? And this is where you'll continue to work. As you say, you're going to work on not needing her approval. Right? Is there anything more you want to say to her as we to end for now?
I love you, and I don't need you to approve of everything I do because I'm an adult, and I'm going to act like an adult, and I don't need your approval for everything anymore.
Okay, and what do you feel inside?
Oh, I feel pretty good about that. Talking to an empty chair is a lot easier probably than the real world. But I think that these are things that, you know, I do need to work on.
Yeah, and you know, it's almost like symbolic of, that it's working on it in you, not with her. It's not to change her, and it's not really even working on it with her. It's really letting go in you. I mean, you know, some things in the real world with her would be good too, but not getting angry or not expressing all of this. Somehow it's actually a task inside of you to let go of this need and come to terms and forgive maybe, or... Right. So I hope you continue to work with this and that it's been useful to you.
I think it has.
Right, good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Les, I really enjoyed your work with Dion, seeing both of these sessions. Is this a good example of emotion-focused therapy for depression?
Yes, this is a very good example. I mean, the client was really accessible, and we got into some important material. So I think it is a very good example.
And if you and Dion were going to continue to work together, can you kind of hypothesize or speculate how treatment might take place, and maybe even how long it might last?
Yeah, I think a treatment of 16 sessions would definitely be adequate for her, which is the normal time that we've spent in our research-based treatments, maybe even less, because she's really seemed to make a lot of progress. And how it would unfold is I think we covered two major pieces, which was the self-critical component of the depression and also the relational and dependence component. And I think we would continue to work on both of these throughout. But the work wouldn't all be as active.
What do you mean by that?
Well, here there were dialogues in both sessions and a lot of emotional process. And I would imagine that would, it's so much has been opened up already that more work would be done now on consolidating some of this work, and we wouldn't do dialogues every session.
To be talking to one another.
There'd be much more relationship or a dialogue between the two of us, not always the use of these psychodramatic techniques, although they were very helpful and we would use some more. Clearly where we got to in this tape suggests a trajectory which is continuing to work with her mother and trying to resolve her unfinished business with her mother, let go and move on, separate.
And the depression would lift. Would she still be so emotional?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's interesting, that question, because one of the things that showed up in some research about children is that parents who respond empathically to children's emotions, this is research by Gottman, these children become very much more competent, and one of the things is they're not emotional with their peers. In fact, they're very cool and calm and regulated. So really, I think this would lead to much better regulation.
So by paying attention to emotions, this reduces them?
Yes, yes.
Wow. I would think it would be just the opposite, but it doesn't work that way.
No, not at all. I mean, a simple learning theory says if you do something, you do it more, but a need gratification or completion type of view of human experience is once you've solved a problem, then you finish it and it goes away. So the emotions are like aspects of problem solving. They're indicating there's a problem. And once you've processed them and solved the problem, the emotion no longer serves its function.
Well, you know, and then what we want to do is to look at some clips here. And I think we want to move in, you know, in a couple of minutes with the first clip we're going to look at from your first interview with Deanne, as you're working with her and you're trying to create a focus for the treatment. So let's watch that clip, and then we'll get some of your comments about the clip.
Right.
Well, right now I just feel like I'm kind of forcing myself. To keep getting up and going to work.
Pushing and pushing, yeah, yeah. I wonder if you can breathe and, you know, maybe even let the tears come if you're willing, or it's like you're struggling on the brink of them, but they're important tears. So there's the struggle of pushing and pushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just makes me tired, and I got my bachelor's degree.
If you were to speak from the tears, or actually let them speak, what would they be saying? I feel
Hopeless.
uh-huh.
I feel like I'm struggling, and
It's just like pushing and pushing, and you can't see the end.
yeah, that's exactly how I feel, and I can see it in front of me, but I just can't seem to get there quick enough.
So it's the...
Now, Les, your model talks about creating a trusting emotional bond and creating emotional awareness. Is that what's going on here?
Yes, I think this is definitely what's going on. Firstly, I'm empathically mirroring what she's saying, and I'm trying to create an emotion-friendly environment. I'm inviting her into her tears. I'm noticing that she's holding her breath and she's on the brink, and I'm trying to give her permission. It's okay here. This is a place where you can feel emotional. And I'm also trying to evoke. I'm saying things like pushing and pushing. I'm kind of repeating sentences, trying to help her feel the emotion and draw it out more. And it's particularly poignant, this moment where she says, I feel hopeless, and this pushing, and it's that I'm really responding to.
Now, are people usually this emotional? This is only a couple of minutes into the interview.
some people are, some people aren't. I mean, often, of course, as a generalization, men are not that emotional, women are, but she is very available and accessible. And this is one of the things we look at. It often takes 3 or 4 sessions before people feel that comfortable and we're able to get into this level of emotionality. But she was readily accessible.
I mean, this was like about 3 or 4 minutes, and you're trying to get her to breathe and even to come out with, let the tears flow. Are you afraid she'll get in over her head?
Right, I'm not afraid at all, and I'm reading some type of cues from her that she's sufficiently in control of herself. She's not panicking, she's not overwhelmed.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a quality that would indicate, I mean, if somebody was shaking and very distressed, but I don't see her in that way, and so I feel quite comfortable, and also have faith that going into emotion is going to be good. And I'm part of the context. I think if the therapist tenses, gets afraid of the emotion, it's going to create a bad emotional climate, and then the emotion transforms into something that's fearful. So somehow I'm confident in my own ability to handle the emotion, and that's going to make her feel safe.
Okay. But usually this is about 4 or 5 sessions in before you really get into this kind of
or, I mean, we usually talk about the first 3 sessions as being a bonding and relational phase, and then there's an evoking phase, and this is more like evoking because the emotion is already being evoked, and that would only take place in the 3rd or 4th session.
Yeah. Let's move on to watch another clip where you really work at helping to create a focus for the interview.
What seems the worst of it all to you? I mean, I can see there's still a lot of pain there, right? What feels the worst of it?
I think the worst part of it is that I feel like I chose the wrong person to be with. That there were a lot of signs when I look back now that tell me that this was not the right person to be with. And I didn't stop that before I got married. I just chose to go with that anyways.
But so it's almost like beating yourself up for not having paid attention to those signs, and then feeling like you're responsible for, I guess, the pain that was caused to you, to your son, to having gotten involved.
Exactly.
So somehow you chastise yourself, right? Like you shouldn't have gotten married to him.
And at times I think that I've come to terms with that. But apparently I haven't.
You know, as you and I were watching this, I noticed that you seemed to be seeing more than I was seeing, just by looking at your reaction. What did you see happening here?
Well, what I saw was a marker of a particular problem that we pay a lot of attention to, which we'll call a self-critical conflict or self-critical split. And so I saw her beginning to organize with a guilty sense of I am bad or I'm being critical of myself for what I did in the past. And this is a very key marker, particularly in depression, of self-criticism. So I was hearing this and I was beginning to feel that, okay, this is a good place to form a focus for this session. And it seems to be a core issue for her.
Are there other, what you call markers? This one's self-critical.
This one is the self-critical split. And we've defined very clearly 6 markers and some further ones, but the 6 main markers are the self-critical split, unfinished business with a significant other, and that's where people have a lot of unresolved emotional memories with the often parents and other significant people.
And that might be a part of depression too.
Yes, that's a pretty important
Okay.
part of depression related to dependence feelings. And then there's a self-interruptive marker, which is about suppressing emotion, where people interrupt their emotional experience. They avoid or prevent it from emerging. And then
You
there's
might
a...
call that denial. Some people might call it that.
Yes, you might
Okay.
call that denial. And then there's a problematic reaction. And this is where people talk about a situation to which they have a reaction which is problematic for them, and they're puzzling about the reaction. Like, why is it that I've reacted in that way? And that's another particular kind of problem. And then there's...
So that's 4 of these markers: self-critical, unfinished business, self-interruptive, and then the problematic reaction.
Right. And then there's a, which actually comes from Genlin, and it's called an unclear felt sense or an absent felt sense.
You're going to have to help me with that.
It's when people are going around and around something, talking about it, it seems significant, but they don't seem to be able to make contact with what they're really feeling about it.
Okay.
So that it's either a vague sense, like a tip of the tongue in emotional terms. I don't quite know what I'm feeling,
Okay.
or I don't have a feeling, but it seems important. So then we try to help people focus on the feeling. And then the last very important one is a vulnerability or shame marker, where the person's whole self seems to be very vulnerable, and possibly the person feels shame, core shame. And we think it's very important to attend to that in a very empathic way.
And so some of these markers are going to lead to depression, or they're going to be a part of depression.
Right. Oh, the markers will indicate sort of processes that are depressive, and particularly we found that unfinished business and self-criticism are very involved in depression.
Now, if I identify a marker, you identify a marker, are there treatment strategies then that go along with each of these markers?
Yes, yes, there's specific interventions designed for each marker.
Okay, so it's important then to really, is it like a diagnostic tool to catch this?
Right, and it's a process diagnostic tool, so that you're looking at what's going on in the process in the session. It's not a person diagnosis, but it's the state of mind you're in, the emotional state of mind at any one moment. So there are different kinds of cognitive affective problems that people enter into in therapy.
Wow, okay. Well, let's move on to you're moving into a treatment intervention, and you start to do some chair work. Let's watch this.
Right, okay. Can you imagine yourself over here and see if you can actually maybe get an image or a picture? And this is the self that you chastise or blame, right? And this is the part of you that's unforgiving and blaming, right? We're going to actually try to set up a dialogue, right? Because I think this is the source of a lot of pain in you, right? Okay. So, what is it? What do you say to her? It's like you should never have married him, or you should have noticed the signs. You have to do it. Actually, say it to her.
You should have you should have known better than to get involved with him in the first place, because there were all the signs and he didn't treat you well while you were going out with him in the first place.
Tell her what the signs were, or what she should have paid attention to.
You should have paid attention to the fact that he was late all the time, that he went out to the bars all the time and left you sitting at home and would lie to you. And the first time he hit you, you should have just left him and walked away from him then. And you're stupid because you didn't do it.
Yeah, so this is it. You're stupid, right? Tell her again, this is where you feel so...
you're stupid because you didn't walk away from him when he hit you the first time. And you should have had more self-esteem.
Uh-huh. Breathe, breathe, let it come, right? Because there's all this stuff there, yeah?
Can you talk a little bit about why you set her up in this fashion with this empty chair and what you were hoping to have happen?
Well, there's been this, as I commented a moment ago, a self-critical split seems to have emerged where she's saying she's done something wrong. So now this is a way of working with that process, and we're at the first step of that, which is to evoke the self-critical voice. And what's particularly important here is it's not only a negative cognition or a negative thought like you shouldn't have or you should have, but also it's the contempt that goes along with that negative voice. And so when she says something like, you're stupid for doing that, it's like we're now getting the contempt for the self, and this is very depressogenic. So when people are very self-contemptuous along with the negative cognition. So we want to draw that out or bring that alive, because it's going to bring alive the feeling of shame that contempt produces. And this is what's so depressogenic for her, the shame she feels or will feel.
So this is kind of a treatment formula you have about the depression? This is what you've learned so far? It's a hypothesis?
Yes, and also we have research which shows that those people who are more contemptuous, who show a more contemptuous face in the dialogue, are more prone to depression than those people who are self-critical but don't have the contempt. So we know that the contempt is an aspect of the depressive process.
So in some ways this might be a more severe case then, because she does have the contempt?
Yes, definitely.
Now, I noticed that you used this empty chair technique, and I'm sure our viewers will think you even look a little bit like Fritz Perls. I mean, is this a derivative of Gestalt therapy?
Yeah, this is a derivative of Gestalt therapy, clearly, and this is a intervention that we actually call a two-chair dialogue, where she's talking between two parts of herself. And there's another intervention, the empty chair, where she'll be talking to somebody else. And this does come from Gestalt therapy, but we've studied it for 15 years and done research on it, so it's much more specific and explicit. But its origins are from Gestalt therapy and psychodrama as well.
I also noticed in this clip too, you focused on the cognitive, the should. I mean, that sounds like Albert Ellis or rational emotive behavioral therapy.
Right. Well, it's interesting because really the shoulds came from Pearls originally, long before Ellis. And Pearls actually, and presumably Ellis, took them from Karen Horney, who was psychodynamic. But shoulds were a very important part of Gestalt therapy, the top dog and the should. So it crosses the different domains. I think cognitive therapy came on the shoulds later.
Yeah, okay. Let's move on and watch as you continue the empty chair.
Right. So now what happens inside when you get this? You're stupid, you should have had more self-esteem. What do you feel inside?
I feel like I'm stupid.
Tell her how it makes you feel.
You make me feel like I'm stupid and I'm worthless.
And this is the awful feeling, right? I just feel so worthless.
I feel worthless, and it hurts really bad when you tell me these things.
Yeah, tell her how it hurts. Let her see the hurt.
It hurts me, and I don't know how I can make that up to you.
So some of it is I want to make it up. But it just hurts so bad. I imagine it must really bring an ache in your body. Or what's it feel like, the hurt inside?
It feels terrible. feels like I just want to crawl up and put a blanket over my head and
and
and just
hide or just
Yeah.
disappear, right? Yeah.
Les, can you talk about what's going on in this clip in terms of your therapeutic work?
Right, here we've actually attained a sub-goal of the whole intervention, because the aim is to get to the core maladaptive emotional, the core emotion, and it's shame. And
okay.
contempt produces shame, and the action tendency in shame is to shrink into the ground and disappear, and she actually uses those words. And so the whole reason of putting her in the chair dialogue is to try to make accessible this core shame so that it can begin to be amenable to new input or to get a new experience. So this is the core maladaptive emotion that we've now accessed. The basic theory that we work with is you can't leave a place until you've arrived. So we're trying to activate this shame, because this is the very painful place that's often so hidden, and it's very deeply emotionally based. It's almost amygdala based. It's an automatic emotional response, and if we want to change it, we have to bring it up in the therapy and then begin to introduce it to new input.
It seems like you're really prompting her or seeding her or pushing her emotional expression with your leads.
There is a balance in this therapy between leading and following, and so we want to work in what can be called a proximal zone of development. Lead her to what's possible for her, facilitate bringing out what's there, but not lead her 2 steps ahead where she can't use it. So there is an element of combining leading and following, and it's kind of like a dance. It ends up where I am leading, but I don't want to lead too far ahead. I don't want her to be just following me, or for me to lead the witness and her do what I want. So I'm sensitive to signs of whether it fits or it doesn't fit. But there is an element of leading the process, but only half a step ahead, or to bring out what's there.
And you keep watching to see whether or not this is okay with her.
Yes, because some clients who are very deferential, they defer to the therapists, and they, in their heads, some of my colleagues have done research, you ask them and they say, well, my therapist wants me to do this, so I'm just going to do it. And yeah, we're very sensitive to that and to see if there are any signs of that. That's not what I'm trying to do. So I do see myself as trying to bring out what's there, rather than trying to make her follow me or to lead her to where she isn't.
Okay, now that makes a lot of sense, because a lot of people have said, the good patient or the good client is the one who does what we say.
Yes, yes, and that's just compliance. And
Right.
here, compliance would be a negative word in here when you're working with affect.
Sure. Yeah. Let's move near the end of this session, where you really deepen the therapy or start to deepen the process.
Good, right.
because when I think about it, you're doing a really good job.
Tell her this again.
And when I really think about it, you're doing a very good job.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I know you're under a lot of pressure as it is, and you really don't need me to be putting more pressure on you. You need me to be understanding you, and so I'll try to understand you a little more and stop putting so much pressure on you.
Yeah, and I think that's important, right? What's the anxiety that drives you to put the pressure on her? Do you know? Where does it come from, this pressuring or this be perfect? Where does it come from?
Well, I think it stems from the way I grew up.
So it's more, it's not even anxiety, it's more like who when you were growing up?
My mom.
Okay. So for a moment, we have a few minutes left. Be your mother, right?
Les, can you talk a little bit about how therapy's deepening here?
Right, well here she's reached an important point which we call a softening. And at this point I'm really thinking, the interesting thing about this is it's really a process-oriented therapy, and at times I'm responding very intuitively and automatically, but it's not just doing therapy by the seat of my pants. I really do have a model, a research-guided model. And so we've reached one of the points, which is she softened. The previously harsh critic has softened and said, I feel concerned towards you and so on. So we've reached a certain point, and now I'm thinking we can go another round and deepen this by trying to understand more where the critic comes from or what's driving the critic. And sometimes it's anxiety, and that's what I try first, but that doesn't seem to be quite right, and what seems to be most helpful is to identify that the critic's actually an introjected voice of the mother or an introjected mother. And now we'll go to the mother, and this is going to deepen the whole process, because now she's going to evoke all the feelings in relation to that self-critical, scolding mother, and then we'll go another round. Well, this is what would happen over the therapy process. So we're kind of moving from her own self-critical voice to now it being the mother's voice, and there's going to be greater depth of processing in relation to the mother.
Are these like layers that you go through? Is that another, like the layers of an onion that we just keep peeling off?
Yes, it is. These are deeper and deeper layers of experience.
So how deep do you go? I mean, when's enough enough?
These are like open problems, not closed problems. You know, there's not a definite answer of 2 + 2 = 4. So it's a creative task, and you keep seeing if there's more there to go to, but eventually the client will reach a completion point. It seems to be fully processed and resolved, and it comes together. But there's a certain artistic component. How do you know when a painting is finished or a symphony ended? There's a complex decision-making process that there seems to be clarity, there seems to be ease, there's a easy flow, and the painful affect has disappeared. And those would all be signs that it's enough.
I mean, some people want to just make a symptom go away, kind of like why we have such poor compliance to our medical directives, you know, that we don't take the medicine for the complete duration that we're supposed to, and so the symptoms reappear. Is that likely in your work if people leave too early?
Yes, I would think so. I think that without working to deeper level restructuring, relapse is possible.
Now, in a minute, we're going to move on to your second session with Dion. And as she came in the second session, she had a lot of relief. I mean, she really looked like she was feeling a whole lot better. And I almost got the idea that she was saying, let's just leave it that way. I mean, does that happen?
I think it does in a treatment, that when you've gone deep in one session, there's often a need to consolidate and put things together. However, here we also ended on a kind of crescendo, which was, this is my mother's voice. So there seemed to be a kind of a point of continuation that was being forecast almost. So it seemed like it would be useful to work on the mother. And then also theoretically, particularly in the context of depression, it seems like there's a self-critical process, a perfectionistic process in depressed people. But there's another process which is often a deeper process, which is a dependence process.
What do you mean by that?
Well, there's some love relationship or attachment relationship in which the person has needed to feel loved or accepted by another, and it's because they haven't felt loved or accepted that they develop the self-criticism. And the self-criticism is almost like, if I'm perfect enough, or if I'm good enough, then I'll get the love that I so desperately need. So the self-critical process suggests that there may be a deeper underlying attachment problem, which is an unmet need for love and approval. And so it's important to try to see if that is an important piece for this particular person.
So there's this unfinished business from childhood?
There's this unfinished business, and we've already had a suggestion here that there's unfinished business with the mother. So it seemed like it would be very helpful to deal with that. But it is true that she comes in and she's feeling integrated and together, and so there's a choice point as to would it be too disruptive, too much for her too soon to go into that. But she also has indicated great availability. She doesn't seem to be afraid. And then if she goes there, then I would certainly go there with her.
Okay. Well, let's move on to her work with her mom in the second session.
Okay. So I'm sad about not being able to have this, but also I don't like what I get, the judgment, right?
Right.
Right? Can you tell her what you resent?
I resent the fact that you think that you're always right and that you always have the best answer for everything in life, and you don't allow me to have my own ideas and my own feelings, and it makes me really angry.
Do you feel angry?
I just feel more sad than angry, because making, like, me feeling so angry makes me sad that I feel like that.
But it's this complex mixture of anger and sad, right? And maybe we can work to have each of them, because each one is really important, right? But I see the sad, right? So tell her what you miss, because that's what's so sad, right? I miss
you. I miss you hugging me and telling me that you love me.
Les, anger and sad, each one is important. What does that mean?
Well, this is actually, there's a marker here, a subtask I'm working on a subtask in unfinished business. Unfinished business is the global task, and in unfinished business people often start off with complaint, and complaint is a blend or fusion of anger and sadness that can't be experienced or expressed separately or distinctly, and it ends up being kind of hopeless complaint. So the task here is to try to help her be able to be purely sad and to be purely angry, and to be able to access the information and the action tendencies in each of these emotions and process them. But what we have is there's a kind of a fusion, and she can't, this is the first indicator we get that anger is difficult for her. But anger is the emotion of separation and setting boundaries, and it's difficult for her to be that. She has a lot of sadness, but ultimately she's going to need her anger in order to be able to separate and feel stronger.
I've heard you say that anger can transform sadness. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, well, it is a piece of that here, because we use one emotion as an antidote or to undo another emotion or transform it. And
you're going to have to tell me more about that.
Right. And this is a very novel concept, but I think a very important one, which is in sadness or in shame, there's certain withdrawal emotions, sadness and shame. They're actually belong on one side of the brain, there's evidence. And the withdrawal emotions, so in sadness, is to withdraw, and or in shame, to shrink into the ground and to pull back, become small. In anger, the action tendency is to thrust forward, puff up, and become bigger. Well, you can't be pulling back and becoming smaller and thrusting forward and becoming bigger at the same time. And these are psychoaffective motor programs. I mean, these are things going on in us. They're chemicals supporting it, neurochemicals. So what you're doing is when you're shrinking and withdrawing, if you can evoke anger, it's going to transform the sadness. It's going to dump different neurochemicals into your body, different thoughts, action tendencies, and you're going to get a new blend emerging, like confidence.
Oh my, yeah. So this is almost like turning this around. It sounds like you use the anger to bring this out?
You use the anger to help her not collapse into sadness.
Okay.
So that once she's, and then when she begins to, in the future, when she begins to think of her mother, she now collapses into sadness. Now that sadness is very important. It needs to be processed fully, because otherwise it'll keep coming up. But if it's fully processed and she grieves what was missing, but then if anger comes up at the same time, she begins to feel her rights and assertive, and it transforms. So next time she thinks of her mother, she no longer just feels sad. She now feels this blend, which eventually comes into a new form, which is confidence or self-assurance.
Okay. Let's move on as you continue to help her deal with her mom.
Right.
And all I wanted you to do was to be happy and to be proud of me. And you wouldn't give it to me.
So it's kind of left this big hole inside almost, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell her about what's happened inside of you?
You've left a hole in my heart. And it hurts.
And I keep trying to get you, or wanting you to tell her what you want, or what you...
I keep trying to get you to be proud of me. And to just love me for who I am.
Say this again. I want you to love me for who I am.
I want you to love me for who I am.
Again.
I want you to love me for who I am.
Are you trying to teach her assertiveness?
I don't see myself as teaching her the skill of assertiveness, but I am trying to facilitate an emotional organization that will lead to assertiveness. So I'm trying to draw it out. And I see what I'm doing here is I'm both trying to promote the grieving process at first, because she needs to complete the grieving. But then as soon as I see a sign of possible assertion, I'm trying to draw that out and amplify it almost.
So this is less like psychoeducation and it's more like coaching?
Yes, I think it's definitely coaching in the emotional domain in a very refined and subtle manner. So it's not like kick in the pants coaching, but it's coaching by facilitating, bringing out the strengths, the resources, the possibilities that are there but not quite being actualized yet.
This is kind of going back to your Rogerian roots, that we believe that the answers are within our clients and it's our job to help bring those out?
Yes, I think so. But the important difference is now with emotion theory. I think there's a strong scientific base that this actualizing tendency is really based on emotion, and that emotions are adaptive, and that we're constantly, the emotion system is helping us to survive and to thrive. But it does come from that view that there's strengths and resources within.
Well, let's move on to watch another clip that's almost 12 minutes later as you continue to work on Mom.
Good. I ached for you to just hold me and say I'm okay.
I ached for you to hold me and just tell me that it was okay and that I was still a lovable person, and give me some kind of reassuring talk make me feel better about it. And every single time, you just made me feel terrible, like I was a disappointment. And the anger is because I didn't even want it. I didn't even want it in the first place.
I didn't even want the...
I didn't even want whatever I was doing. I didn't want these things. I was doing it for you.
She really seems to be into this role playing. I mean, this has gone on for a long time. Is this really a good thing?
Yes, I think this is a very good thing. We're really working, and we're working at differentiating out both the feelings and meanings involved in this this complex thing, which is a knot inside of her. That's what the unfinished business is. So here, there's the grieving, the anger is beginning to differentiate out, but also it's like once you arouse emotion, it gives access to a lot of memories and feelings and hot cognitions, we originally called them. And here she says something along the line, I didn't really do it for me, I was doing it for you. She's beginning to really crystallize and express that she twisted herself out of shape for her mother. And this is going to help the anger develop, because she's going to clarify for herself how much she didn't want to do what she did. So I think we're doing important differentiation.
So by encouraging this emotional expression, eventually it'll stop? Somewhat. I mean, it's like two negatives make a positive, or two positives make a negative.
Right. I mean, there are two aspects, but this is not venting or getting rid of emotion. And one of the biggest things that emotion does is it leads to cognitive change, but it also leads to a diminution or a regulation. So if you experience emotion, you begin to differentiate it, you create new meaning. But by focusing on emotion, it will lead eventually to the emotion stopping. But you've got to know which emotions to focus on when and what they do. This is not an undifferentiated, just get into your feelings and it'll all
Not
be
a
okay.
catharsis.
Right, and it's not a catharsis.
Yeah.
It's a much more complex and subtle process.
Yeah, I'm beginning to see that. Let's move on to a final clip.
Good.
And I'm mad because that's not fair, and I don't want to do it anymore.
Again, I don't want to do it. I don't want to give myself up.
I don't want to give myself up. And I'm not going to do it anymore. And if you're not proud of me and I'm not doing the things that you would choose for me to do, it's just tough, because I have to live my life just like you have to live your life.
Now, what do you feel when you say this?
I feel a sense of relief.
Because this is important, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard for you to hold this point of view, right, of being separate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell her what's hard about letting go of the need for her approval, her recognition.
Well, it's hard for me to let go of my need for your approval, because in the back of my mind, I still keep hoping that I'm going to get it one day.
You know, something has really transformed her, has gone on in these two sessions. I mean, she talks differently, and she really sounds differently to me. And here in this piece, you talk to her about that it's difficult holding, you know, this position. What were you thinking about?
Well, there are two pieces going on here. I mean, we're in another subtask, which is letting go of the unmet need. And this is what's really difficult for her and for many people. So we're now beginning to work on that. And I'm trying to help her work with what's difficult about letting go of the unmet need. She sort of said, I am going to separate, but she also sighs. And I want to help her really work with what's difficult about it. And this is a sort of antidote to that it might just be training or leading the witness, or that she's deferring to me. We're really going to not just be a good client and say I'm letting go of you, but then you'll go away and it won't really be true. We're working on the real difficulty. This is difficult, and we're going to try to help her articulate what the difficulty is, and then begin to overcome that difficulty.
Well, this has just been fascinating. Are there any final comments that you might have for our viewers on working with the problem of depression with emotion-focused therapy?
I think the important things to say are, firstly, it's very important to have a good relational bond to do this kind of work. You have to be comfortable yourself with emotion, and that this client was very accessible, and we had 2 sessions which were highly emotional. Usually the therapy, only about 25% of the time is spent in these more active, stimulating tasks. Often one session is deep processing, and the next session is consolidating the meanings. So I think it's important for people not to jump in and just try to open people up.
So we probably can't do this our first time out.
Right, I think so. And I think an empathic relational style is very important, because if you open up emotion, even if you don't know what to do next, as long as you're empathic and provide a holding environment, it's going to work out well. You're going to help regulate affect, because affect is regulated dyadically or in the relationship. And so the relationship is very important.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.